Okay, we start here, and we're in the land of the very small. I'm actually controlling this little guy around here. This is basically cellular scale. We have like some fluid dynamics. This basically is a very analog fluid version of Pac-Man. So basically, I'm trying to eat these little dots. These little bad things chase me. Certain ones, like these guys, can kill me too. Ah, that's bad. I have certain abilities in this world, but this world is pretty much entirely procedurally generated. Now, the abilities I get from this guy, after I eat enough little of these food pellets, I get to lay an egg. So that little yellow thing is my egg. I now actually get to go to the next generation of the guy. I can click on the egg and go into an editor. If we could bring the lights down just a little bit, if that's possible. So here's a little editor. I have very simple parts that I can kind of build for this guy. I have mouthpieces that influence what I can eat. I can either eat filter food, or I have a proboscis I can poke into things. I have different movement methods: flagella, cilia, little jet, and weapons like neat assists, spikes, whatever. So I'm going to take a little spike here, put it on the front of the guy, and then go back into the game. And I've actually modified this guy's abilities now. So whereas those brown things used to kill him, now he can go in and attack them. Now, I still can't go after the brown guys, but now I have a new food source. Now, I can change my movement and get faster. I can get stronger. So basically, the character that I'm controlling here is something that I've designed in the editor. Now, over time, as I'm playing this game, the camera kind of pulls out. The depth of field, kind of reses down. This guy grows as it gets more complex. I'm going to skip ahead just a little bit in his life cycle. What you're actually doing is you're playing through several generations here. And at every generation, you get the ability to go in and kind of modify it. So this is a bit later in the game. We've actually gone now from a 2D to a 3D environment. And now, rather than living in a little drop of water, we're living kind of under the ocean. Now, this entire world you see here is procedurally generated. And especially the guy, which I've created as a player. When I say procedural, I also kind of include player creating things, being very malleable in a procedural way. So for instance, the player creates his character, but the animations, behaviors, textures are all generated procedurally. Now this guy has a life cycle, very much like the little cell guy did. He also competes with other creatures in the environment. Another thing to realize here that's kind of different is that all the creatures in this environment are coming from other players. Now, this is the editor for this guy. You can see he's kind of made out of parts. The editor here is roughly a mixture of kind of Mr. Potato Head, Erector Set, and clay. I can grab the parts and manipulate them. I can even kind of pull them off, morph them. So I'll pull that off. I can grab the spine here, manipulate it. You see there's an underlying skeleton here, which gives me some clue as to kind of the internal structure of the guy. And like clay, I can roll the mouse wheel and actually sculpt him smoothly to give him his outer form. Now, these things are built out of functional parts that actually have meaning to the guy in terms of how he's going to behave and live in this world. These parts also are mutable. So let's pull off his tail here. The part categories come in functional divisions. So these are graspers. A lot of the parts also have some functional value besides their primary one. So that's a grasper as well as having a little bit of a weapon ability. But it's primarily grasper. This is a three-jointed leg. Make it a little bit smaller. These are feet. So basically I've taken my little swimmy guy. I can also scale the parts as I put them on. So I've taken my little swimmy guy and basically pulled his fins off, which is going to mean he's not going to swim too well now. Let's see, leg there. So this guy is going to be a tripod guy. So the player can build like really unusual characters in here. The system will analyze what they built and then kind of bring it to life all procedurally. So we'll bring this guy back into the game. And because he lost his fins, he doesn't really swim too well now. So I'm going to actually have him kind of leave the ocean here. Now, the walking you see here is all procedurally generated based upon an analysis of the skeleton that you created. And in fact, every verb in the game is as well. And once again, the world you're seeing here is procedurally generated. Other creatures coming from other players. Like the other levels, this guy has to kind of survive. This guy's a carnivore, so I'm going to have him eat and have him come in and attack this guy. Now, the way he's fighting is based upon where I put his weapon, which is on his tail. So you can see, if I'm not close enough, it won't hit. So I basically have to chase. Luckily, I'm faster than this guy. Oh, there we go. Get off my head. Yeah. Okay, so we killed this little guy. Now we can actually start eating him. Now, one of the cool things about procedural verbs is that they can be cleanly mixed. For instance, I could tell this guy to take a bite out of this guy and then tell him to walk at the same time. And use that to actually invent a new verb, which is to drag. One of the real wins, though, is that whatever I've created in this game is going to behave differently. I mean, it's just going to be fundamentally different behavior than anything that you might create in the game, which is a huge win. And, oh, okay, he's a bad guy. This is where you say, run away. Now, your game actually builds kind of a balanced ecosystem, so you're not always the top of the food chain here. On the other hand, this guy's kind of fast, and maybe has some amount of stealth, and maybe I can outrun these stupid little hoppy guys, and he'll go eat one of those guys instead. Let's see. I think I might be safe. Yeah. Okay. So one of the next things that you do, basically you live out lifespan of one of these creatures, and then you basically mate, which earns you access to the editor, and you earn currency at this level of the game. So I can do a mating call. And try to find somebody to mate with. Okay, we'll see how that goes. I'll kind of approach carefully. Yeah, that sounds good. Okay. Okay, and then we get to the procedural mating. Okay, enough of that silliness. Then we lay an egg, and that gives us access to the editor, where we get to create the next generation of creature. Now, I want to give you a little bit of a sense for how open-ended this really is. I'm going to load a few creatures that we've created in the editor, just to give you a sense for how creative the player can be with this. This guy, I call him Buttface, but you'll notice he has a rather non-standard leg configuration. But still, he moves very smoothly, very realistic, very lifelike. One little kind of subtle trick we're playing with here is that people have never seen Buttface before, so they don't know how he's supposed to move, as opposed to humans. Once you get the highest level brain, your creatures actually become sentient, and you move to the next phase. Now, at this level, the game actually mutates from kind of a first-person eater to an RTS. Now we're controlling a whole little herd of these guys. Now, one thing that I talked about landmarks last time in my talk last year, and I'm going to show you just a few of the landmarks for me in the design. One of the landmarks is I've always been fascinated with the idea of monkeys with guns. And I don't know why, but just what happens when you give monkeys guns, it's just, there's something cool about that. So at this level, rather than, the creature is now set. You've evolved the creature. But at this level, I can buy them tools. And in this case, I'm shopping for tools, and I'll talk about the shopping a little bit later. In this case, I'll buy them a spear rack. They get excited. We're seeing kind of more elaborate procedural verbs at this point. You know, they'll kind of have a response, decide what they want to do with it. I'm going to try now, before they get into trouble, I'm going to buy them a campfire here. These guys are still a bit excitable. But I'm actually dealing with the social dynamics at this point. Depending on how they play them, they can become very emotional or very logical at this level of the game. Let me buy them a drum. Now, I bought them a drum, and now these guys have decided to start playing the drum. This is actually a procedural dance, you know, based upon my creature. You know. So at this level of the game, you're playing it kind of like Populous or something. I'm buying them tools. It's influencing what they can do. I can control groups of them now. I've seen them out on like hunting parties. And I'm, in fact, competing with other tribes. At this level, the ladder that I'm climbing is I'm really upgrading their hut. And so I'm going to buy them a better hut here, which will allow me to buy them better tools and also allow my tribe to grow. And I'm competing with other tribes for members. They have to do with food and stuff like that. Now, they're just basically living in this little corner of the world. I'm going to skip ahead a bit here. As I upgrade the hut here, eventually I upgrade it to the next level, which brings me to yet the next game, which is the city game. Now, at this level, we're basically playing a very, very simple version of SimCity. I can, you know, decide what buildings to make them. I build roads. They have needs. And basically, I'm trying to keep them happy in their little city. You know, and again, I have complete creative control over everything you see here. You know, so I am, you know, the player is the author of this little world. But these kind of demonstrate a little bit the kind of Pixar to Giger dimensions. Now, these guys also will have a very different culture than my guys. You know, depending on how we evolved and how I, you know, dealt with them, or how the computer dealt with these guys during evolution and tribal. These guys are really kind of more aggressive, a little bit more industrial. At some point, once you upgrade your city enough, you get the ability to start building vehicles. This is how the cities actually interact. At the tribal, you're actually sending people from tribe to tribe and doing raids, or, you know, trading. Having, you know, you can have kind of good or bad relationships with the neighboring tribes. At the city level, we basically have kind of three ways to capture or ally with another city. They're basically military, economic, or cultural, depending on kind of the cultural flavor of my people. So they don't look very friendly, and they're heading our way. So we can open our vehicle editor, which works very much like the building editor. There's a shopping alternative populated with, you know, items that other players have created. And I'm just going to buy something here. Like that, we have parts categories. These have functional meaning. So propellers, you know, can help the thing fly. Certain things enable it to go into water or go on land. But I'm just going to go ahead and go for this goofy-looking thing. This is kind of more of a Nazca-looking. And there they go. Go God knows where. They're a little goofy. Yeah, go to that city. Go. No, not that way. Okay, so they're peaceful cowards, so it's hopeless. I don't know. In the meantime, these guys are, you know, not looking real friendly. So this is kind of militaristic, but there are more peaceful avenues to kind of capturing cities. At this point in the game, we're actually kind of entering the what I call the civilization game. And this is a very simple version of a game like Civ or Risk. As we pull back now, for the first time, you can see the entire world, other cities. Now, one little trick you might notice here is that as I pull away from a city, it actually gets very exaggerated. This is both for aesthetic and functional reasons. Like, as I pull into the city, notice how it pops to a realistic scale, but as I pull out, it actually becomes an icon. That indicates actually the level of micromanagement. At this level, the city is one big button, and it has a very simple menu. If I want to go in and actually go in and still modify the cities, I'm still building Paris while they're attacking it. I can still zoom in and click the individual buildings and bring them into the editor and stuff. So basically, you know, you play this game, the Civ, you know, game, you know, and slowly conquer the world, you know, city by city, continent by continent, until pretty much you have owned this entire little world and built it on the way. So that's that. Now I wanted this to feel like a very clock-like toy world, so you'll notice it actually is very exaggerated.